What's up, guys? Ian here, coach of your Ladner Lanturn, bringing us our MWPA Season 8 Earth Division Draft Analysis. And you might be asking yourself, Ian, you've uploaded MWPA before. There was a movie about this way back when. Yeah, that's true. That was for Season 5. So as you can see, two other seasons have passed since then. And I'd promoted up to Venus in Season 6, and I played in Venus in Season 6 and Season 7. Did not do very well. I went 3-5, I believe, in Season 6, and then 2-6 in Season 7. And so I was demoted down to Earth, where hopefully I will be just as successful as I was last time. My biggest issue so far has been that I'm not super comfortable with free draft. It doesn't seem to be my best drafting style. I tend to work a lot better with tiered drafts in particular. But this season is a little bit different. We are doing a Galar Dex free draft with no deleted moves, but hidden abilities are allowed for everything except the starters and the fossils. So mons like Clefable still get Unaware, even if they're not available in Sword and Shield. And of course it is a free draft again, but the competition level is a little bit lower in Earth compared to what it was in Venus last season. There's a few people in here that I don't know that are new, and obviously it's only an 8-week season, so hacks affects the outcome quite a bit. I never actually uploaded my OLT season. I recorded the first part of that, and then I just decided that it was going to be way too much for me to try and upload, so I decided not to upload OLT. But in the end, my OLT season, which I made a deep run in playoffs actually, was greatly affected by hacks actually in the regular season. And I almost didn't make playoffs because the hacks was like really intense in an 8-week season. I never experienced that in MWPA so far, but the biggest challenge for me is generally trying to decide which 6 to bring. Most of the time, like I actually had some really stellar drafts with huge threats that I could just not decide on what was the best thing to bring. And it's a lot more difficult in free draft to figure out what sort of mons your opponent's going to bring against you. The nice thing about Galar Dex free draft is that there are lower tier things that people are forced into taking. So it's not like a regular free draft to me, where you pretty much the lowest tier you're going to see is like tier 4, maybe sort of level of Pokemon, like a Jellicent kind of Pokemon. And you're never really going to see anything like my first opponent has a Sigilyph or a Barbaracle, which is like low tier 4, tier 5 level Pokemon that you normally wouldn't see on a draft like that. But that's just going into this. So I actually got the second overall pick, which was pretty solid, and I took something really fancy. I really wanted Dragapult, but Chibi took it right before me, which is okay. I mean, the thing that I wanted for is it's like the fastest Pokemon in the entire Galar Dex format, at base 142, or sorry, the second fastest behind Ninjask. But this Mon got buffed this generation, kind of, in a sense that it's usable in Draft League now. In fact, it got nerfed all the way around. It got 10 points taken off of both of its defense stats. Aegislash used to have 150 and 150 in defense and SpDef, which got nerfed a little bit. And King's Shield only lowers attack stages by 1 rather than 2 now. But I never got a chance to try out Aegislash with King's Shield. I had opportunities to draft it without King's Shield, but I always thought it was kind of terrible. So trying it with King's Shield, I think, is going to be kind of fun. It's a pretty decent offensive mon. The stats on the chart on my slide there won't give you the full story because those are the stats of Shield form. It only gets stance change, and it's a little bit slow. The speed doesn't change when it changes forms either, but it's a pretty strong attacker. It basically swaps attack and defense stats when it is in sword form. Excuse me. And the epitome of Sword and Shield is a sword and a shield. So I thought this was a nice way to start off my Galar Dex draft. Picked up a nice steel for me. Unfortunately, it's a steel that doesn't get rocks, but those are actually reasonably common in this draft. A big thing is that removal and hazards are actually really difficult to come by in this format. Lots of mons got defog taken away from them. Mons like Mantine just do not get defog anymore. A mon that I take later got nerfed actually in round 3. We'll talk about that in a sec. And there's a lot of steals that don't get access to rocks. I think rocks is a TR, so it's still teachable to everything that would have learned rocks, but obviously there's no pursuit, there's no hidden power, there's no return or frustration, so it nerfs a lot of stuff like Diggersby is pretty low value, despite the fact that spikes and toxic spikes are super valuable. So my next choice was something to be able to kill opposing steals that I don't think Aegislash is super helpful with, and something that I think Aegislash can cover a weakness for, which is Fairy. So I ended up taking Conkeldurr in round 2. It's a mod I'm fairly familiar with these days. It's really strong, and it got defog and close combat this generation, so pretty much just straight buffed. I think all it lost in Galar decks is knockoff, which isn't the worst thing in the world. It just basically means that it can't touch Psychic types in Galar decks. There aren't a ton of Psychic types that it would need to hit anyways. A lot of the Psychic types are like Psychic Fairy, things like Hatterene, that you can just hit with a Poison Jab anyways, which I believe it still gets. So Conk is like super strong, and if I were to pull off a Trick Room strat right now, my team would be really threatening. Conk and Aegislash complement each other very well, in my opinion. Conk also killing dark types and resisting dark for Aegislash, I think is a big thing. And then in the next round here, I'm going to grab another dark resist, and this is a mon that also got a nerf. It is Togekiss. It lost Roost access. It still does get Morning Sun access, which I discovered when I was looking through moves. Like, I was looking through moves from my whole team, and I kind of wasn't really sure on how good Togekiss would be if it was only Wish. Excuse me, but it still does get Morning Sun. It also got Mystical Fire this generation. Not the biggest buff in the world because it still got Flamethrower and Fire Blast on its set, so Mystical Fire isn't really that useful besides lowering special attack. Personally, I'd rather go with Flamethrower because it's higher base power significantly. But it's a nice defogger. In a theory, it doesn't actually get defogged this gen, so Conk is my only defogger so far. But as a fairy, it complements Aegislash really well, of course, and it can stop any dragon spam that people would want to run against me right now. Obviously, Aegislash resists steals for Togekiss, and Aegislash resists fairies. There's not really much that Togekiss does for Aegislash, but Aegislash covers a lot of what Togekiss is weak to, Poison, for example, as well. Both of them don't have anything else outside of that. Oh, Dark. So it's a Dark resist for Aegislash, of course, as well. I wasn't really getting sniped a lot, and I ended up sniping Chibi a lot at this point of the draft. I think all the way up until round, like, 8 is maybe the first time I got sniped on something. There wasn't anything, like, super important. I was just kind of going at my own pace and picking things up as I went. So next up, I grabbed a little bit faster of a mon. I'm slowly increasing the speed here with Arcanine. Arcanine is super valuable for Aegislash in particular as a fire immunity, as well as a fire resist, of course, if I don't want to run Flash Fire that game. Arcanine didn't really lose anything in its move pool, to be honest. I don't think it actually lost anything, to my knowledge, outside of your return and frustration. It may have lost Roar, I'm not sure on that one. But it's just a super solid fire type. In my opinion, probably the best fire type. I may be missing something, but I think it's probably the best fire type in this Dex format. Cinderace is not allowed Libero, so I think that Arcanine is probably a little bit better than Cinderace. And regular Darmanitan is obviously not in the Dex, so that doesn't really count. So I like Arcanine a lot as an Intimidator. Helps Aegislash set up. It helps Conkeldurr get off hits. It helps Togekiss set up. I like the idea of Arcanine a lot. It would be nice if it got U-turn. Excuse me, but of course it can't learn U-turn. It's got nothing to turn on. Round 5, I wanted to pick up another Dark Resist, although it's not super prevalent as a Dark Resist. And it got nerfed significantly this generation yet again. But my speed is looking pretty meh. So I grabbed a little bit of a faster Pokemon that's going to help threaten Flying types for Conkeldurr, as well as Psychic types for Conkeldurr, that Aegislash can complement with its Ghost typing, of course, as well. But I picked up the Weavile. I think round 5 Weavile is pretty good value. It did obviously lose. It doesn't actually have knockoff in this version because we're not doing post-home. So there's no knockoff, there's no pursuit. And I think initially people thought this was going to get close combat, and then it didn't. So it's still only got like a low kick as the best fighting move that it gets. So, I mean, we've all got like pretty nerfed, obviously, but Night Slash is still very viable. Throat Chop, very viable. Icicle Crash, Ice Shard. It still has a good move pool to work with, and in terms of just like what it can do in terms of killing the psychics or ghost types, and resisting dark. It's not the best at, but Assault Vest is probably as good as ever on Weavile without Z moves around. So I really like the Weavile pickup. It mainly took it for speed and a little bit of that offensive pressure. I'm looking a little bit physically biased right now, so I'm going to try and pick up some special offense in this next round, as well as some team support. So I'm going to grab the Orbeetle. Round 6 Orbeetle I think is really good value as well. Orbeetle is pretty valuable in my opinion for most of the drafts. Like having a Sticky Webber that's really good defensively with U-turn and recover is just excellent in my mind. It gets body press as well. It's a super good defensive tank with like iron defense, things like that. It's got an amazing typing and bug psychic. It's not weak to a lot. I've got a lot of weaknesses that Orbeetle would have covered on my team, outside of Ghost, which Weavile is a resist to, but I don't have an immunity to Ghost. But I've got a fire yeah, I have flying resists. I've got a fire immunity. So the bug typing is covered pretty well there, and then the psychic typing is covered all over the place. And I think webs with Aegislash and Conkeldurr and Togekiss as well is a really viable strategy. I just really liked Orbeetle's fit on this team, and I think this is a big snipe to not only to most of the people in the division, I think. Round 7 I went with an old favorite, and I picked up the Piloswine, so I'm obviously doubling up on ice here. But it's a rocker that kept rocks, which is important, because I don't have a rocker yet until here, so I've got webs and rocks now, which is good. It's a rocker that can come pretty much every week. It's a very bulky Pokemon. It's another ice resist for the Togekiss, so plenty of ice resist there for the Togekiss. And it's an earthquake spammer for steel types for Aegislash as well, which I can break with Conkeldurr and Arcanine, but it's helpful to have something else there. Besides that, I don't really think Piloswine got nerfed or buffed or anything this gen. I think this is what lost Roar. I knew something lost Roar, and I think it's the Piloswine when I was looking through moves. Obviously, it never got knockoff in the first place. That was a Mamoswine only move. So just like Toxic is kind of the things that this lost. In round 8, I wanted to pick up more hazards, and I don't have a water type yet, so I ended up grabbing Quillfish. This rounds out the hazards for my team, and so I have one of each of every type of hazards on the team. But I think Piloswine is valuable enough as a rocker that it'll come every single week, and then Orbeetle Quillfish is sort of like matchup dependent. There aren't a ton of Rapid Spinners, and there aren't a ton of Defoggers, so keeping like T-Spikes or Spikes and Webs up is not going to be that difficult. There aren't a ton of grounded poisons in this format either, so picking up a grounded poison here for myself was pretty valuable. Just for removal of my own hazards, and I believe Rain is still prevalent in this gen, so Swift Swim is usable. It's another Intimidator for Arcanine. I can't remember if Adrenaline Orb is actually in this game or not. It's a little bit dangerous against certain teams with Defiant Pokemon, but besides that, it's not the worst thing in the world. It sort of fits in the middle of my speed tiers here between Togekiss and Orbeetle as well. In the next round, I wanted a dragon, and I think I got sniped on this. Let me check my notes here. I don't remember what I got sniped on. But at one point, I got sniped on something really annoying. Oh, Goodra. So, Goodra went really, really late, actually. It went on the round that I took Quillfish. It went round 8. I was going to take Goodra here, and then it got taken. And I was like, okay, well, it shouldn't have lasted that long anyways, so I'm just going to go with the next best dragon that was there, and that was Flapple. I'm not a huge fan of Flapple. I used it in my playthrough, actually, and it was pretty strong as just a Dragon Dancer, but I had, like, Ripen on it instead of Hustle. It kind of sucks that it has to miss all the time, but it's actually pretty powerful with base 110 Hustle. It's a viable, well, semi-viable defensive Pokemon, semi-viable special attacker, semi-viable Scarfer. It does get access to U-turn, things like Sucker Punch. It doesn't have the widest move pool in the world, and it can't hit Steel types. So luckily I've got a Piloswine, a Conkeldurr, and an Arcanine, and this having U-turn helps me get into those where a Steel type would just sit on top of my face. So I think U-turn was probably necessary. It's a little bit annoying just flapping. It's stupid, like, broken apple wings there. So I'm going to move on into my round 10 pick, which was Raichu. Covering my Steel type Aegislash now. with an electric immunity. I don't know how that's relevant at all. That's only relevant for Celesteelian. Stop thinking about that. Raichu. It's not speed 100. It's speed base 110. I mistyped that, which fills in the slot behind Weavile. So now I've got like 125, 110, 95, which isn't terrible for this meta. There's actually someone that I'm playing. What week is this? They have like really low speed tiers. Week 7. My opponent in week 7 has nothing above base 90 speed. So that's a very interesting thing, right? Like nothing above base 90 speed, and a base 110 Mon would just outspeed that naturally with no Scarf. So I think it's valuable to have the speed there. Raichu's a relatively low tier electric. I don't remember what it kept. I'm not sure if it still has access to Nasty Plot. I think that was an event move. So it's not really as powerful as it would have been in a National Dex form, but in a National Dex you wouldn't take Raichu, you'd take something else. So on the bright side, it is also an electric immunity for mons like Quillfish and Togekiss, I guess, as well. Volt Switch is useful here because I didn't really have a ton of Volt Turn. So it's like Flapple Raichu is my, and Orbeetle is my Volt Turn. And I didn't really have anything else to fill at this point, so I ended up going with a suggestion from Jay with my last pick, and this is just because of heavy duty boots being an item and there being a severe lack of good Dark Stab and a lack of Ghost type for every team. So I ended up taking Shedinja, which is something I've never taken before. It can be kind of good with a Sword Stance set. Its biggest weakness was rocks, so heavy duty boots is very helpful here. And there's not a ton of like stray coverage that you can just slap on for Shedinja. Without Hidden Power around, you can't just randomly put Hidden Power Fire on something or Hidden Power Dark or whatever on something to hit my Shedinja. So it's going to require prep from people. I'm not sure how they're going to handle Shedinja this league, but we'll sort of see how it goes. A lot of teams are very, very, very weak to Ghost, and I think that Shedinja can potentially put in some work. I mean, it's one of those low value mons that you're never ever going to see in another free draft from me ever again, unless we're staying with Galar decks the entire time. So that is the entire team. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will be uploading this entire season of MWPA, which is not something I've done before. I obviously only uploaded playoffs of MWPA Season 5, but that also included the 3 games that I took over the team for. So I played 5 games that season out of potential 10, so I played half the season there. And then I played 2 full seasons, and now we're back uploading in Earth. So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you guys for Season 8.